So welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News in Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a very short span of time within 30 minutes. The idea is to cover your current affairs on a daily basis, but we don't want you to spend your entire day just reading the newspaper. Therefore, we shall cover the entire day's current affairs within 30 minutes. Now, just watching this lecture within 30 minutes would be job half done, because just after watching it, you need to revise it as well. Why? Well, revision helps in consolidating these current affairs in your memory. Otherwise, you'll quickly forget them. Now, you can revise these current affairs from the notes provided by us, and these notes shall be shared on our Telegram channel. The link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section just below this video. All right, then, let's begin today's session. But first, let's take a look at the list of topics that we shall cover today. So here's the list, and in total we'll be covering 4 topics from today's newspapers because these were the only 4 topics that were important from the perspective of Civil Services Examination. Number 1 on this list is, well, aviation accidents. We all know about the terrible tragedy that took place in Gujarat, where a plane crash took more than 240 lives. Now, why do aviation accidents happen? And why do aviation accidents happen during the takeoff or landing phase only? Okay, because this accident also happened during the initial takeoff phase. Okay, not initial, but just after takeoff. So why do most accidents, aviation accidents, happen in takeoff or landing phase? We'll talk about this. Then we'll talk about black box, because up till now, no cause has been revealed why this accident took place. Okay, why this aviation accident took place in Gujarat. The country or the authorities are still investigating. Okay. Now, to do a proper investigation, you need the black box of the plane, okay, of the flight. Now, what is this black box? We'll talk about this. Then, as you all know, there is a conflict going on between ANI, a news agency, and Mohak Mangal, a YouTuber, right? And this controversy or this conflict, which is going on in the courts of India, well, this conflict is related to copyright law. So what is copyright law? And a particular concept in copyright law called the fair dealing concept is being floated in this debate. Okay. So what is fair dealing in Indian copyright law? We'll talk about this. And in the end, we'll talk about drone warfare. A very huge article was there in the Indian Express talking about the future of drone warfare, India's capabilities with respect to drone warfare, and why drone warfare is the future. Okay. So we'll talk about all technical details with respect to drone warfare. Only those technical details that can feature in your exams. Okay. So these are the 4 topics that we shall zero in our attention on. Let's start discussing them one by one, starting with aviation accidents. So we all know about this terrible tragedy. Okay. Air India Boeing 787 Dreamliner aircraft was flying from Ahmedabad to London, and just after takeoff, well, it crashed in the nearby area, well, killing more than 242 people. Okay. Now this is a terrible tragedy. Details of what caused the crash are still not available, and it may be months before any official confirmation on the matter occurs. But a particular question has been raised with respect to aviation, and that is, well, why do aviation accidents mostly happen either during the takeoff stage or during the landing stage? Now, to understand the why behind this, you need to understand the stages of a flight. Stages of an airplane. Okay, what is this takeoff stage? What is this landing stage? What other stages are there where accidents can happen? Okay, so let's talk about flight phases. So any airplane goes through these 5 phases. Okay, number 1 is takeoff, then is climb. So as soon as the plane takes off from the runway, it climbs the height. It raises its height. Okay, and after reaching a sufficient height, it enters the cruise phase. Now, cruise phase is a phase in which the flight flies at a very high altitude. Okay, this is the majority of your flight path, or majority of your time goes in this cruise phase. Okay, the flight is flying very high. This is considered to be the safest. Generally, it is considered that accidents can happen very high above in the air, but cruise phase is generally considered to be the safest phase. Then, as soon as the airport where you have to land approaches, well, the flight starts to descend. Then it approaches the runway and then it lands. Okay, so these are the 6 stages of a flight. Now, it is generally said that the most risky phase is the landing phase, then the takeoff phase, and then our climb and approach phases. The cruise phase is the easiest and least risky. As per International Air Transport Association, the landing phase accounted for more than 53% of the accidents. Okay. The next was, well, takeoff. As you can see, landing has majority of the accidents. Then takeoff, then approach, that is when you're approaching for landing, then climb stage. Cruise stage has minimum accidents. And what is this taxi in? Taxi in is basically before takeoff when people board the flight. Okay, the luggage is boarding the flight. Okay, so it is basically loading of an airplane, loading it with aviation turbine, fuel, luggage, people, all of this. Okay, now landing is the most complicated, and then it is takeoff. Now these are the two most dangerous stages or the most vulnerable. Now the question is, why? Why are these two stages the most vulnerable? Okay, so why takeoffs and landing are the deadliest? First of all, during the takeoff phase or during the landing phase, the altitude is very low. Okay, when the cruise phase is going on, the altitude, the height of the plane is very high. But during the landing phase, approach phase, takeoff phase, or the climb phase, the altitude is very low. During these phases, aircrafts are what in aviation lingo is called low and slow. Okay, which means the aircraft is very low in height. It is also very slow in speed, leaving the pilots with very little time to react if something goes wrong. So if something goes wrong, if your engine goes off, then you have very little time to save yourself from the crash. If you're in the cruise phase, okay, and then the engine goes off, then still, because you're at such a high height, pilots have some time to get into the glide phase, to do some repair or anything, okay, to do anything. Clear? In this phase, there is very little time. So that is why. Then, stress on the engines. The aircraft engine is at its most stressful phase when it is taking off, because it is currently, the flight is very heavy and it has to lift itself off from the ground. That's when the engines are at their most stressful position. So it can cause engine malfunction. Then, if you ask any pilot in the world that what is the most difficult part, what is the most technically challenging part, all of them will say landing. Landing an aircraft safely on the runway is the most difficult part. Landing is the most technically challenging aspect of flying, requiring the pilot to consider a lot of things, from wind speed, direction, weight of the aircraft, while making constant decisions with respect to altitude and speed. And lastly, the thing is, in the cruise phase, the aircraft is in upper atmosphere. Okay, but on all the other phases, it is in lower atmosphere. In lower atmosphere, you are vulnerable to bird strikes, turbulence, okay, then storms. All of this happens in lower atmosphere. In upper atmosphere, in cruise phase, well, all these things don't happen. Okay, so you're mostly safe in cruise phase. Okay, though accidents do happen in cruise phase as well, but lower altitudes are the most dangerous. And that's what happened with this flight, which was going from Ahmedabad to London. Okay, now let's talk about Blackbox. So what is Blackbox? Now look, this accident happened, okay, and nobody knows the cause of this accident. Nobody knows why this accident happened. Clear? Now, to know the cause of this accident, first, the black box of this flight will be retrieved, okay, from the rubble. It will be retrieved, then it will be analyzed, and then only you can know for sure what happened to this aircraft and why this accident took place. Okay, now the question is, what is this black box? In simple terminology, this black box is just a flight recorder. Flight recorder. So, throughout the journey of a flight, this flight recorder records all the data with respect to engines, with respect to what the pilots are speaking, whatever is happening in the cockpit, whatever communication the pilot is having with the air traffic controller. All of this is recorded in this flight controller. The communication between the pilot and the co-pilot, that is recorded in the flight recorder. And all the data with respect to ambulance, turbulence, turbulence, data with respect to any problems with respect to flight movement, air data, temperature data, every data is recorded in this flight recorder. Okay, so when an accident happens, when you retrieve this black box, well, you'll analyze all the data that has been recorded. Any conversation between the pilot and the air traffic controller, that would be recorded. Okay, conversation between the pilots, that would be recorded. And maybe the pilots talked about what has actually happened, and when you retrieve this data, you'll find out the actual cause. Okay, so this is what a black box is. Clear? So black box is simply a flight recorder with its origins in early 1950s. Actually, its origin is because of the contributions made by an Australian jet fuel expert, Dr. David Ronald May Warren. Okay, now he gave this idea of keeping this flight recorder in the flight. Okay, now earlier the information was recorded onto a metal strip in 1950s. Then magnetic drives came out in 80s and 90s, and now chips are used. Solid state memory chips are used. Now one thing is very clear. It is a flight recorder that records everything, and we'll talk about what sort of things are recorded in this. But this term black box is a misnomer. Why? Because the color of the outer box of this flight recorder is not black. It's mostly orange. And the reason for it being orange is because if the flight crashes, then you have to retrieve this black box. Now, it should be put in a shiny box, okay, that can be seen from afar. If you put it in a black box, well, it will get lost in the rubble. It will be very difficult to find it. You understand? So, it's just called black box. Actually, the box is not black. It's orange, shiny, bright color. Okay. Now, what all is there in the black box and how does it work? Okay. So, how does it work? So, most aircrafts are required to be equipped with two black boxes. Okay. One black box is cockpit voice recorder, okay, which records radio transmission or the conversations or any sound in the cockpit. Conversations between pilots, engine noises, everything is recorded in this cockpit voice recorder. Then there is flight data recorder. It records altitude of a flight, okay, airspeed, flight heading, vertical acceleration, pitch, roll, autopilot status, and around 80 different types of things, 80 different types of flight data. This is recorded, okay. It usually takes at least 10 to 15 days to analyze the data recovered from the black boxes after crash. Yes, because it is a lot of data. It's very difficult to analyze, okay. Now, this black box needs to be protected, because if the flight will crash, then, well, you have to make sure that nothing happens to this black box. It remains safe. So this black box is basically put in another titanium box, very strong covering, very strong protections. And generally black boxes are kept in the at the tail end of the aircraft, which is the most safest in case of a crash. So tail ends are the most safest. As you can see over here also, this is the tail end of a craft, right? It remains intact most of the times. So you keep black boxes here. All right. So this is what you need to know as far as black boxes are concerned. And now let's talk about another news item which has been in the news for quite some time. Okay. The reason why we are discussing it now is because the court proceedings have went somewhere and the discussions have started on Indian copyright law. Though this controversy has been going on for many days now. Okay. Because it is important for us civil services aspirants to know Indian copyright law or Indian intellectual property rights. Okay. Now, before talking about all these things, I need to give you a bit of brief background if you are not aware of it already. Okay. So what is this background? And then we'll talk about fair dealing in copyright law. Okay. So look, as you all know that there are many YouTubers, okay, which make current affairs related news. Okay. Many news items that are made by them. Well, these YouTubers use news clips. Okay. Most of the time news clips, news images to report or do their analysis on YouTube, right? Now, the thing is that this YouTuber, Mohak Mangal, and many others like him, use news clips by ANI. Now, ANI is not a news organization, it is a news agency. Now, what do you mean by news agency? The thing is that ANI collects news-related data. It has sent reporters all over the country. They collect news-related data. All these things, all the news is gathered by ANI, okay? And all the news channels like Aaj Tak or NDTV or India Today, TV Today, all these news channels basically subscribe to ANI. They pay a subscription fee, monthly subscription fee. They subscribe to ANI in return for whatever news related data is covered by ANI. So ANI basically covers news, okay? It generates all these clips and it gives those clips to its subscribers. Okay, that is what we mean by a news agency, which collects data, they do reporting, and that reporting, those clips can be used by Aaj Tak for their own reporting, right? And for that, ANI charges a fee, subscription fee. Now, ANI says that all of this is our hard work, we have done all of this, and we sell this to these news organizations. Now, if YouTubers are going to use our clips for free without paying a subscription fee, then why would Aaj Tak pay them this subscription fee? Aaj Tak would also say that if we can get it for free, we don't subscribe to you, we'll take your data, right? So it is causing huge losses to ANI because their business model is such that they collect news and sell it to these news organizations which use ANI clips or ANI data points, right? But YouTubers are using it for free. Now, ANI says that this is violation of our copyright, okay? And ANI has basically filed a suit against, well, this YouTuber Mohak Mangal, okay? Basically, ANI first told YouTube to take down his videos, okay, because they are violating copyright, okay? And YouTube complied and his videos were taken down. That's why he made this video. I am Mohak and I'm not scared of ANI, basically, okay? Basically saying that ANI is bullying him. That was all the background that you need to know. Now, another important thing that you need to know is what is copyright, okay? So all the creative people, all these people who make art, videos, pictures, movies, all these people who do these things, who do these creative things, okay? Well, these people say that this involved their hard work, okay? So nobody can use their hard work for free. If you want to use my movie, then pay a license fee to me, okay? Now my movie won't be misused by anyone. This is protected against copyright. My literary work, my poem, my writing, my essay, all these things won't be used by other people, because if it can be used by other people, then I don't have any motivation to do all of these things. Why would movie people make movies if anyone can use their movie and sell it to people and earn money themselves? Only I have the right to earn money through movies, right? Make sense? So this is protected under copyright. Now ANI says that Mohak violated their copyright. I hope you have a basic idea of what copyright is. Whatever you make, okay, if you make any song, then you take a copyright on that. So nobody can use that song of yours without your permission. Clear? Okay. So this was in the news. So news agency ANI last week accused YouTube content creator Mohak Mangal of infringement of its protected exclusive content which it sells to other news agencies or news organizations. Okay. Now, ANI also approached YouTube to issue copyright strike. So if there is a copyright strike against you on YouTube, your video gets taken down. And if there are 3 copyright strikes against you, then your channel also gets taken down. Okay. And this copyright strike is basically if you have used a content from someone without his permission. And plus if they have a copyright on that. Okay. So if you have used any songs from movies and all that, so you get a copyright strike. Now, what Mohak Mangal has argued, by the way, ANI has basically filed a case against Mohak Mangal in the courts, in Delhi High Court also. Clear? Now what Mohak Mangal is arguing is, Mohak Mangal says that, well, he did not violate any copyright law because as per Indian Copyright Act of 1957, whatever he did or whatever clips he used, his usage is protected under fair dealing concept of Indian Copyright Act. So within the Indian Copyright Act, there is this concept called fair dealing. As per this fair dealing, whatever Mohak Mangal did is completely permissible. So this is basically Mohak Mangal's argument that I have done no copyright violation because I am protected under fair dealing of Indian Copyright Act. Okay. Now the question is, what is this fair dealing? Okay. So it says that certain works like literary works, dramatic, musical, artistic works, okay, like videos, movies, songs, certain artistic works who have a copyright on them, okay, who have a copyright, may not be considered as infringement of copyright if used for private use. Okay, so if you bought a movie and you are watching that movie for your own private usage, well, that is not copyright violation. Copyright violation happens if you download the movie and then sell that movie to theaters on your name. That is copyright violation. So fair dealing says that if you use these copyright related works for your private usage, then it's completely permissible. Okay. Now what includes private usage? So if you're using these things for your own research, academic research, for your PhD thesis, if you're using it for criticism, so there are so many movie critics who use movie posters, some movie clips for their YouTube videos for writing criticism of that movie, right? That is permissible. For review, movie reviews also, right? So if you are basically writing a review of a movie, you can use their poster, or for reporting current affairs or events. And this is where Mohak Mangal says that I'm using ANI's clips for reporting on current affairs, for reporting on things that are already there in the public, for public consumption. It is in this part that Mohak Mangal seeks immunity. That because reporting on current affairs and events basically is permissible under fair dealing of Indian copyright law. How have I violated Indian Copyright Act? This is what Mohak Mangal and many other YouTubers are saying. Okay. Now the thing is that ANI says that no, this does not cover under fair dealing, because by doing this, you are causing us economic losses. Okay. So by doing this, we are suffering from economic losses, and hence it is not considered harmless reporting of current affairs or events. Okay. ANI says that you are violating our copyright, because by doing this, our economic losses are rising. Okay, this is the basic controversy. Now, the definition of fair dealing, this is just a general definition of fair dealing. Okay, now to tell whether Mohak Mangal comes under reporting of current affairs and events under fair dealing or not, there has to be a proper definition of fair dealing, which details each and every activity, what constitutes fair dealing, what constitutes non-fair dealing. Okay, now there is no definite straitjacketed. Straitjacketed means proper minute definition of fair use or fair dealing in Indian law, and therefore Indian courts decide what do you mean by fair dealing on a case-to-case basis. Okay, so in every case, the courts decide what is the actual meaning of this or the actual definition of this fair dealing. So what activities are fair dealing, what activities are not fair dealing? It is decided on a case-to-case basis. Clear? Now, Indian courts interpret the scope of fair dealing on a case-to-case basis. The court considers various factors such as balance of convenience. Like, what is balance of convenience? To generate those clips, ANI had to work so hard. It had to send reporters all over India. It had to spend so much money. But for YouTubers to get those clips, they didn't have to do anything. They just press the download button. So the balance of convenience tilts heavily in favor of YouTubers. They are at the benefit, and ANI is doing so much hard work to do this, to basically make these videos, to generate these clips, and YouTubers don't have to do anything. So court looks at that, this balance of convenience, okay, and the impact felt, including financial and economic rights of the copyright owner. And because of this action by YouTubers, ANI is suffering from huge economic losses. If that is the case, then the court will say that this is not fair dealing. You are doing copyright infringement. So the court looks at these factors. Okay. The court also looks at de minimis principle. Okay. Now, de minimis principle is used in all intellectual property rights, whether that is patents, copyrights, trademarks, and whatnot. Now, what is this de minimis principle? It essentially says that courts will not intervene in cases where the infringement is so trivial that it doesn't warrant judicial attention or scrutiny. Basically, if the courts think that this copyright infringement is very small, it's very little, not much harm is being done by this, and it is so trivial, it is so useless, this copyright infringement, it is copyright infringement, but if it is so useless that courts should not put their attention or divert their attention on this, then the courts won't intervene. This is what de minimis principle is. So for example, I photocopy a movie script and I use it to sell it to 5 people for 10 rupees each. So the entire money that I have earned is 50 rupees by selling the script of a movie. Just 50 rupees. Now this is very little amount. Not much harm is done to that movie. So it falls below de minimis principle. You understand my point? Okay. So de minimis. So currently Mohak Mangal is also saying that I have used just 8 seconds of clip from ANI. That is nothing. No economic losses are happening to ANI by using just these 8 seconds of clips. Okay. So it should fall below de minimis principle and the courts shouldn't intervene in this matter. This is the entire dispute. So remember de minimis principle, remember Indian Copyright Act, remember fair dealing. Okay. All right. And now let's move on to our last news item, which is drone warfare. Now, the thing is that Operation Sindoor was a landmark conflict, and I'll tell you why. It basically revealed the significance of force, military force. that India needs to have good military force. And India needs to raise its economy to such a level that it has enough money to procure most advanced weapons. Plus, its force should be high-tech. India needs to do a lot of research and development to improve the technological capabilities of its weapons. India should improve its research and development so that it possesses very high-tech weapons. Okay? So India needs to improve the technological level of its armed forces and to improve its economy to make these armed forces well-funded. That's what we have learned from Operation Sindoor, right? But former Army Chief General M.M. Narawane, he has said that while we pursue our quest for niche technologies including AI, it would be prudent, that means practical, to remember that future wars will also involve low technology which is easy to obtain but difficult to defeat. So, many people think that the future war involves high-tech weapons. But General Manoj Narawane says that the future wars won't be fought on these high-tech weapons. It will also be fought on these very low-tech weapons that are low technology, low economic cost, very easy to make, but very difficult to defeat. Okay, so we need to be careful of these weapons also, because in case of Pakistan does not have good economy so that it can basically procure or buy these high-tech weapons. Pakistan does not have a good research and development infrastructure to make its high-tech weapons on its own. But Pakistan can use these low-tech, low-cost weapons or technologies which can be used in such a way to basically cause trouble in India, right? That's what General M.M. Narawane says, right? So General M.M. Narawane says that we need to be careful of these technologies also. And the poster boy of these low-tech, low-cost technologies are drones. Pakistan used many drones against India in Operation Sindoor. Ukraine, which is militarily inferior to Russia, used these drones to good use. And Houthis are using these drones against Israel and America. Okay, many countries who are militarily weaker are using these drones to seek some advantages and are causing pain in these military superior countries. Okay, so we need to know more about drones. Okay, so about drones, so technically they are called unmanned aerial vehicles. They date back to World War II. But back in the day, back in World War II, unmanned aerial vehicles were used to basically train anti-aircraft gunners. So anti-aircraft guns, well, they need to be trained. So for that you use these unmanned planes. Okay, their modern military usage took off in 1990s when America used them in Gulf War in 1991. But till early 2000s, drones were only used by America and were only possessed by America also, the high-tech ones. But now, since the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict of 2020, drones are being used by everyone. Okay, they are being used by terrorist organizations like Houthis. They are being used by Pakistan, India, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Ukraine. Every major military conflict uses these drones because drones have a significant advantage. They are low tech, they are low cost, so that even terrorist organizations can make them. And if they get destroyed, no human life is also getting lost, right? So they are being used heavily by everyone. Now, the new thing that has occurred in drone warfare is drone swarms. What are drone swarms? When you send multiple drones all at once, as you can see in this picture. Okay, multiple low-cost drones all at once. And these drones can communicate with each other and coordinate their actions. Okay, this is what we mean by drone swarms. So swarm drones are autonomous, semi-autonomous UAVs that operate in coordinated groups. Like birds, birds travel in swarms, right? Birds or fish travel in swarms, coordinated groups. Similarly, drones can do it. The purpose is to send, like Pakistan did this. Pakistan sent very low quality, like extremely low quality, bad drones, but they sent them in hundreds. Okay, 400 bad quality drones were sent. Now this saturates our air defense because our air defense guns are busy neutralizing them. So it saturates our air defense. These low quality drones can gather intelligence and even attack high value targets like Ukraine did. Very low quality drones were used in Ukraine's Operation Spider's Web against Russia. But these low quality drones were effective. According to Fortune Business Insights, the global military drone market stood at 14.14 billion in 2023, and it is basically going to triple, okay, by 2032. Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan, in a lecture in Pune, flagged the rising drone threat. He said that now we have drones as small as water bottles, and these small drones are undetectable and therefore untargetable. So it is a big threat. Now, how do we counter drones? Now, drones can be neutralized through two ways: kinetic measures, non-kinetic measures. Now, what are kinetic measures? Well, basically, you launch missiles to intercept these drones, like you must have seen in this recent Operation Sindoor conflict. Surface to air missiles, air guns, okay, automated gun systems, phalanx or CRAM, okay. CRAM stands for counter rocket, I'll write, okay. CRAM stands for counter rocket artillery and mortar guns. These are automatic guns, okay. They detect a threat drone and they fire on them, okay. Then directed energy weapons like lasers. Lasers can be fired on these drones and it would basically fry their electronic circuitry, so they become neutralized. So these are the kinetic measures. But there are non-kinetic measures also, where you do not use any missile, gun or anything, okay. You neutralize drones without physical damage. That is why it is also known as soft kill. So electronic warfare, you jam their GPS signals, their communication links. You basically do GPS spoofing. You basically hack their system so that they get faulty location data. Then cyber attacks. These are non-kinetic measures, and India did employ all these non-kinetic measures against Pakistani drones. Okay. Now, what sort of weapon systems does India possess to counter drones kinetically? Okay. So, Akash Tir Air Defense Control System, we all know about this, developed by Bharat Electronics Limited. It integrates with Indian Air Force's integrated command network for real-time tracking of drones. Okay. Then Bhargavastra, Solar Defense and Aerospace Limited's weapon system, fires 64 micro rockets to eliminate drone swarms. DRDO's anti-drone system, Indrajal, created by, it is an AI-powered grid. Basically, it was created by a Hyderabad-based startup. So, Indrajal, anti-drone system, Bhargavastra, these are some of our counter-drone weapon system. Clear? As you can see over here, these are kinetic drone strategies. Okay, you fire missiles, and non-kinetic, cyber warfare and all. Clear? And with that, we conclude today's session. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. But it would add more value if you're consistent and regular with this lecture series and you revise the lecture from the notes. So please do not forget to do that. And on that note, I'll be signing off with the promise of seeing you again with another set of news items. Thank you, everyone.